We're going to talk about PREPS version 7 today, which is software that has been on the market in standalone mode already for a few weeks and already integrated with Prinigy for a few months. My name is Peter Husmans. I am the marketing manager for output devices and workflow systems, and I'm responsible for anything that's related to workflow or anything that's related to CDP devices. So let's see what we're going to do today. So first of all, a short introduction to PREPS itself, the software, not immediately related to version 7, but just PREPS in general. So what are the key features? Then what's new in version 7, the features and enhancements and the integration with our Prinigy workflow version 6. We're going to then spend some time in a live demonstration, which is of course the most important part because then you can see the product working. A small summary of what we've seen, and of course, some time left for Q&A. So first of all, what is PREPS? So PREPS is a software that is a solution for automated impositions, error-free to some point, of course. And what it allows us to do, we can automate and accelerate the imposition process. So either by quickly generating an imposition from scratch or adding JDF data from any system into PREPS will allow us to automate the imposition. PREPS is supporting very complex jobs. These complex jobs can be either for digital printing or for conventional printing. PREPS has a functionality to maximize the press sheet usage, which makes sure that you have a minimum waste, of course, when you're finally printing it. And something that we've worked on a lot lately in version 6 and even more in version 7 is to handle large libraries of templates. We always got feedback in the previous versions of PREPS, either being version 4 or version 5, that PREPS when it comes to a certain point has a large template library, which can happen of course, we all know it. Your operator just keeps regenerating templates with small modifications, and before you know it you're stuck with 5,000 templates or even more. So in version 6 and also in version 7, we've worked very hard on simplifying this so that it's really easy to find any of your templates back. PREPS can be used in any third-party workflow or any third-party RIP, and of course it can be used as an integrated module within Prinigy systems. So the key features within PREPS, just first noted them down in a moment, you'll see some more details. So we have a run list view which is quite advanced up till now, so it provides all the details of the PDF that you have in PREPS. Then we have an assembly view, and just put a little tick mark there for a moment because I'm going to come back to assembly view a few more times, and it's quite vital to notice. But this offers us all the information when it comes to JDF intent, yeah, and it also offers us a drag and drop control over very complex assemblies. During the demonstration, I'll show you a quite interesting one. And then we also have, and perhaps as I noted also in the assembly view, the use of job intent. Now, before spending too much time on explaining those, let me just bring them quickly on screen. So this is the advanced run list view. As you can see here, you could put your PDFs within PREPS and you get lots of information by clicking through the different parts of the PDF. During the demonstration, I'll spend more time on it, but this is just to get you familiar with the software. We have the assembly view, and this is where I told you before, okay, let's not forget about this one, because this is quite vital, this part, which, as you can see, gives all the details on JDF intent and, for instance, also on JDF folding catalogs. And then we have, of course, the job intent part, which is also new from version 6 on. This will allow us to work more as a, let's say, an order manager or a CSR within PREPS. So, what's new in PREPS 7? First of all, and this is very important, and I get the question a lot lately, from PREPS version 7, we no longer have Plus, we no longer have a digital version, we no longer have a digital Pro version, we only have Pro. So from anyone today who's working, for instance, with PREPS version 6 and has the Plus version and will upgrade to version 7, automatically we will give you the Pro version. We're not making a distinction anymore. We're not going to take features away. From now on, from version 7 onwards, any version that goes out from PREPS is going to be Pro. So whatever we develop from now on is for everyone. That means, for instance, if you're coming even from version 5, you upgrade to version 6, and then you upgrade to version 7, automatically, if you would come from a Plus version, you will find yourself in a Pro version when you come to version 7. And you can see there's some vital stuff there, like for instance the mixed binding styles. Lots of requests we had over the years by people saying, okay, I do jobs where my cover indeed is saddle stitched, but when my content is actually coming to life, it becomes perfect bound, which is of course a mixed binding style. In previous versions of PREPS or in the Plus version, you need 2 different jobs to actually handle this, while in the Pro version, you can all handle it within 1 job. The assembly view, that's what I said, that used to be a Pro feature, and lots of our customers who had Plus said, that would be cool if we had it. Well, from now on, you have it indeed. The web growth compensation, which PREPS also allows us to do the multiple parts, if you have cover content, inserts, and so on. JDF input and the whole JDF matching that we have within PREPS is also part of Pro now. The auto-ganging, which is also part of Pro, and of course, which is also very vital to some who use binding machines that take JDF input. So if you have a cutter or a folder that will take JDF input, from PREPS we can output it, so you can send it to those machines. So all of these features, as you can see now, are part of Pro and are part of the basic PREPS version that we sell today. So we have added some functionality also on top of that. It's not just that we made it Pro, because that would have been easy, of course. We also developed some more features, and that the first one is actually some packaging functionality. We see a lot when we install PREPS, when you would have any kind of printer that works today in books or in magazines, that they would say, yeah, but there is always some point where I have to do some kind of packaging. We're not talking about the complicated nested work that you would do with CAD/CAM systems. I'm talking about the work where people would say, okay, I have a cover of a CD, or I have a certain kind of booklet that I need several times on a sheet, and I actually need to do some step and repeat on it. And this is functionality that we have had already in version 6, but it was quite simplified. So in PREPS version 7, we took it a level further, so we have full step and repeat functionality in there. At the same time, because we've seen it also before, that people who are working with PREPS will see terminology that says pages or impositions, while if you work in a packaging environment, we talk about artwork and we talk about step and repeat and layouts. So the terminology is also there. As a user, you can choose your own terminology and you can choose how you like to see your interface. We've also added then smart marks, which were developed for packaging, but funnily enough, we can also use them for commercial, because bearer bars, for instance, is something that has been requested in PREPS already for a very long time. And now, I'm not going to say thanks to packaging, but in some way, yes, it has been added into the application and is now also there for everybody to be used. Microdots, which is very typical for Flexo, of course, and then we have a functionality where we can step and repeat smart marks. I will explain this also during the demo. Then some other enhancements. So we have a press sheet optimization capability. So there's a preference within PREPS where you can say, okay, I'm going to optimize my sheet. So if I would put a 2-up, like for instance A3 file, on top of a big sheet, I want PREPS to automatically fill up the sheet. So that's basically what it does. It's press sheet optimization. Again, I will show you during the demo. The job layout report. For a while, PREPS already has this print job layout report. It's been already since version 5, I believe. And people tend to use it, but we always get feedback, yeah, it's nice, but it's missing some features. We don't see marks, we don't see some kind of information of distances, dimensions, and so on. So it would be great if these were added to the report. So in version 7, we already have a quite enhanced JDF intent report that I will show you in the demo. And this one, of course, will evolve over newer version of PREPS. We enhanced also the marks rule editor. If you work in a JDF environment, and an MIS system, for instance, would be sending a JDF file, which contains all the information of the job, into the system, then of course it would be nice if that system, perhaps in this case, when it creates an imposition, would also add marks onto the imposition. And we all know that marks that you have on your sheet are not necessarily linked to a PREPS. It could be that you're adding a mark that is linked to, for instance, a folding machine. So with this, we enhanced the marks rule editor, and we've added lots of stuff to it. So now you can add a mark based on, for instance, cover, or based on content, based on a folding machine, based on a cutting, you name it. It's all there. So This will help you then if you would automatically generate impositions, that all your marks are automatically placed onto that imposition. The last one, of course, is a nice to have, but of course we need to do this. We have support for Acrobat X and the next version. So anything that comes from Acrobat X on is now supported in PREPS. That is also linked, by the way, to the ripping functionality of PREPS, because if you put PDF files in PREPS, you want to make sure that the transparencies that that PDF is carrying, that they are displayed correctly. Spend a short moment on the integration with Prinigy Workflow 6 for those who have Prinigy. So when we upgrade from a version 5 Prinigy to a version 6 Prinigy, automatically PREPS 7 is part of it. And what we're working on, and it's an ongoing development, so it will be developed more in future versions of Prinigy 6, is that the functionality that PREPS has will be placed into the new interface, which we call the workspace. So at some point it will be easy for somebody to just stay within the Prinigy interface, work from there, while in the background it's using the PREPS functionality. What PREPS is also doing, for those who actually have seen Prinigy 6 before, we have a special database in there, which is called the REM database. You can see it here. REM stands for Resources, Equipment, and Material. So what PREPS is doing, when it's creating new sheets, when it's adding marks, these are automatically, when it's linked to Prinigy, placed into that database. So if somebody then later on within Prinigy would be working for a certain job and doesn't want to open up PREPS, they can just go to the Prinigy database, which carries this information, and then automatically can select anything from there. So any of the resources that you have on PREPS, any of the equipment or any of the material on PREPS is also found automatically within Prinigy. I'm not going to spend time in the demo by showing the integration within Prinigy because it's a PREPS demo, but this is just shortly to make you aware of what the development is within the workflow. Just for your information, and this is also still linked for Prinigy to the previous one, but it's good to know. If you would create, or if you want to create automated an imposition, there is certain information that you need. Yeah, you need job intent. So this is basically describing what your customer wants. Huh? If your customer says, okay, I like to have a magazine printed, it's got a cover, and it needs to be a little bit of thicker paper, and I need the content to be on this kind of paper, and it's going to be A4, and it's going to be so many colors, and all this information, that's job intent. This you put into your system, and at the same time, you take your resource equipment material, which is your shop's capabilities. That's also what you have in PREPS, but you would also have it in Prinigy. That would also be something that you have within your MIS system. So if you combine those two, then you have a scenario. And that scenario can actually say, okay, based on the information, this is how I'm going to generate my imposition. So and that way we can perform some complex impositions to final output, but let's not forget, and I just want to emphasize it again because I can see it each time, with automating imposition you can do a lot, really. And I would say personally that 80 to 90% of your work can be done automated. But there's still 10, 20, and even there's the customer out there that knows, yeah, I need to completely do this manually job that still need to be done without full automation. And this is also very important to know, and this is also why PREPS keeps evolving as a software so that we can still help you if you want to do or if you need to do a job completely manual, so that the automated mode just is not applicable for the job that you're doing. So let's spend some time in a demonstration. So PREPS version 7, first of all, very important to know. There's lots of blah blah here, but you can see it's PREPS Pro, which gives you all the functionality that you have. For those who actually want to know, that's the build that we have. That's the release build of version 7 PREPS. I'm using PREPS here in standalone mode. Yeah, I'm not using it integrated within any workflow, so everything I'm doing is basically on my Mac here where I'm working. Just to get you acquainted with the software, once again, because it's important to know. So on top here, you'll see you have 3 different views. Very logically, you start from the left. That would be your input view. This is where all your pages information would be. Then you would spend time in an assembly view, which I'm going to explain in a moment, but this is where you would assemble your job. You get job information from your customer, and then you're going to assemble it into something that makes sense. And then you would have your press runs, and this is where you would see your imposition with all your details. Now, the software itself I'm using shortcuts here, but I'm just going to do this quickly. Yeah. So this is me pushing the arrow keys on my keyboard. If you push the arrow keys on your keyboard, you can bring information back and forth. So, and if you push a little bit too long, it jumps up all the way to the top. Apologies. But this is just to show you how to work with the software. So the left-hand pane that we have here is for getting all the input, yeah, your files, your products, and your resources like your paper stock and so on. Then you have the middle is where you always would have the preview of what you're doing, and anything you click on in the middle will show up on the right-hand side with properties that you can edit. So this is how the software works. I was talking before during my presentation that we worked quite hard on templates, how to actually search through them. So you have here a template library. The template library can have folding patterns. I will explain them during the demonstration for those who do not know. We have step and repeat patterns for those who do packaging, and we have, of course, the typical templates that you use, and that can be a quite long list of templates. Now, the good thing is we've added a search capability, and as you can see, you can now search. So if you would have 5,000 templates hanging around in PREPS and you just quickly said, okay, I need something with a certain binding style, I need all the perfect bounds, and I need at the same time also the work style to be work and turn, you can see that this one minimizes and just shows me what I need to have. Even if I would say, okay, I have a number of impulse pages is going to be so much, this is like a 4x2, or if I have a stock size that I'm working on, or if I have a page size, the system automatically is going to take the information and just going to get it. You can see if from the moment I type in something where the system says, hey, but you never had a template, what happens? The system is going to tell me you can take a folding pattern and apply this to a folding pattern. So the system is clever enough to figure out what I actually need, and from based on that information, I will just get the templates that I need. So that's something that's quite well done within PREPS now, is that you can search through your templates. The other thing which I like a lot, and I'm usually one kind of a preference kind of guy when it comes to software, is there's been a lot of work spent into the preferences pane. So in here, as an operator, you can have your set of profiles that you would call upon before you do a job. And why was this done? If you work day in and out with PREPS, and you're swapping from an A4 job to an A3 job, to a step and repeat job, to whatever, sometimes you're keying in data that you just do multiple times. I get feedback from operators saying, yeah, but 5 times a day I have to give in 210 by 297. Yes, I know it's A4. Why do I have to key it in each time when I start a new job? Well, if you set your preferences to what you're going to use during that job, you can save them. And then quickly within PREPS, you can say, okay, give me the profile A4 magazine. And by doing that, it's going to bring the preferences for doing that forward. And then you do not have to key in all your values. So you have lots of stuff here. I'm not going to go into the details, but you'll see here there's lots of stuff. And in PREPS 7, there's more and more information that's brought into here, yeah, to help you do this. Over here, if you place your impositions on a stock of paper, how do you want to place them? If you know that your bottom always has a 12 millimeter bleed, then you save that. And then you know that your bleed margin, it's not really a bleed, but your gripper margin is going to be 12 millimeter. So it's going to apply that to what it's doing. You know, so these kind of things are quite important to know. And by doing that, if you save them, it will apply to the job. And if you then start a new job which contains another profile, you just take the profile and automatically everything is placed on the right spot. Okay, enough blah blah. Let's go into the program. So what I'm going to do first of all, show you how you could create an imposition the normal way. Yeah, this is something that people know from older version of PREPS. I'm going to take a paper. Yeah, I could take also plate if needed. I'm just going to use my typical, Apple M or Command M or Control M, whatever you like to have for your imposition. I'm just going to say OK here. I'm going to take my numbering tool and I'm going to have fun numbering this. This is how PREPS used to work. Voila. And then I can say I'm going to take a set of marks and I'm going to drag and drop the marks on there. There we go. I just made an imposition. Quite simple. That's how people tend to work. I'm going to do this differently. So I'm just going to quit this for a moment, make a new job, so I'm fresh in this way. I'm going to the assembly mode, and I'm going to edit the product that I have here. So I'm going to key in some values. This is all depending, of course, if you have a JDF file, you don't need to do this, right? I mean, all of this information comes from a JDF file. For instance, I have a little bit of information, and my typical binding style is perfect bound. Okay, so do I have parts? Yes, I do. I have 2 parts. I have a cover, which contains 4 pages, and this is cover. And by the way, just to highlight this before I continue, you can see that we added stuff like folding carton, is the label, is the tag, or is the bag, because these are now all variables for you to add marks. So if you do a folding carton, you might have different marks on your sheet than, for instance, for a bag or so on. So that's why you see you have a bigger list here. So I'm going to put it to cover, and you see what automatically happens is it thinks, but yeah, cover, that's saddle stitched. So I'm just going to change your binding style to saddle stitched. I'll leave it be for a moment because you'll see what happens. My largest section is a 4-page section because it's a cover, it's 4 pages. The stock of paper is going on, and I'm going to take my media information. By the way, should I still want to change this, you can see it takes it from my preference. I could, but I'm going to leave it as B. I'm going to create a second part, which is called content. This is going to be 24 pages, and I'm going to perfect bound them. And you can see you can get now a mixed binding style, which is one of those functionalities that we have in the Pro version of PREPS. Okay, my largest section is a 16-pager. Again, press sheet size, all the rest will stay the same. Okay. Now, excuse me for the weird font thing that I have there. I was playing around with my fonts and my system preferences, and I messed something up. Apologies for that, but it usually shows a little bit nicer than this. By the way, you have 2 different views. You have this and this for those who like to see it differently. You can see now I have a cover, which contains page 1 and 2 and 27 and 28. And I have a content, which is, you can see here. Now, if you would change something and say, okay, I'm going to do it anyhow, saddle stitch, you can just drag and drop stuff any way you want it, you know? So just drag and drop it, whatever you want to do, and you can just recreate how your imposition is going to be. For your information, I do not have a press run yet. There is no press run created. I'm just working on assembly at this moment. What it did do, and this is quite interesting, and I'll just bring this up a little bit. There you go. You see, it created already for me a run list of cover and content. So before I continue working with the other one, what I can do, I'm just going to hide. So don't worry, I'm hiding the application. So I'm just going to take my cover, and I'm going to drag and drop it on there. There we go. And I'm just going to take my content, and I'm going to drag and drop it onto the content. So what the system is doing, and this is what I meant with the Acrobat X support, so the Adobe PDF Print Engine 2.6, which is part of it, part of the ripping functionality that we're doing, is actually ripping those pages, and it's going to give me the details here. So you can see here I have now a nice preview, and I get a view of this. If you would zoom in, you would see here in action, so it's re-ripping the data, and it's going to give me high-resolution data in a moment, you see. So that's basically how it works. If I select something, and I explained it briefly before, you would have here properties, you can play with them, you would have different kind of properties depending on where you click. So of course, if I cannot edit something here, that means it's just not part of the run list. That would mean if I'm in assembly mode, I would be able of clicking something and changing it. See, so the program is also made that an operator would not change something that would influence any of the other tabs that you would have here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to assign, because you can see there's this triangle here telling me, you're still missing something. Before you can continue this, you need to go into your equipment information, and you need to give me some more details before I can continue this job. So what I'm going to do for the 4 pages, I'm going to browse for a folding pattern. Now, for the 4, as you can see, it's quite simple. You don't have much. So I can take any kind of folding pattern. And what I'll do in just a moment, because I'm using now, of course, folding patterns that are given to me by the JDF Consortium. So these are predefined folding patterns. You can make your own folding patterns. So whatever kind of folding pattern you think of that you need in your company to use, you create it in PREPS, and then you say save as folding pattern, and it will show up here, and you can reuse it. Okay? By the way, any kind of folding pattern, so I'm going to take something different now, that you actually created and say, yeah, but this looks good, but I actually need it to be this, you can still rotate and flip and do whatever you want with folding patterns, right? So I'll take that one, and then I'll take the last one. I know this one by heart. Here you go. By the way, very important, you still have other information like head trim and so on that you can change before you generate it, or you can also change it after you generate it. So you're free to edit at any time. So, still doesn't look good, huh? Well, I gave all my information. The only thing that's missing is me clicking this button, generate the press runs, and there you go. All my impositions are created. So I have here my cover. Have you seen what happened? It automatically optimized my sheet. So that was the preference I told you about before. So perhaps there's now a functionality to see, okay, you're doing a 2-up, and I can actually fit that 4 times on a big sheet, so I'm going to do it for you. You can also do this manually and do it differently, but just to show you we have an optimized functionality. This is the sheet of the 16, if I remember correctly. Yep. No, that's a 2 times 8, I can just see. And this is the one with the 16, which of course is the remaining pages. You have a front and back view, of course, and as for those who know to work with PREPS and haven't seen it before, you can also do this kind of magic by bringing them together. So there you go. This is one way of actually working with this new assembly mode. I just wanted to show you one thing because that's something that's quite important. It's not going to take long, but just to show you what you can do with this assembly. So this is a typical job that I would have, and what I'm going to do now, actually before I do the next one, is print a job layout report because this was also part of it. So here in PREPS, you can just say print job layout report of what I've just done. It gives you with a pop-up, you just say print, and what it will do, I actually need to click print, but I created one before. What it will do is it will create you a PDF. And that PDF contains all the information of this job. You can see here it's commercial print. The job name, I didn't really save it with the previous one, but okay. You can see here it's A4, saddle stitch. And what's more important, on the second page, the press runs come in. And I did this on purpose. I added some extra marks which are underneath the press run just to show you how this looks like. So you really see all the marks on there. Now you can zoom in here and you can get more details, but you have all the marks. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. You have all the marks that you need. So you can see this is the cover, also explaining what kind of colors you have, front and back. Then the press run number 2. Also sheet utilization is on there, so you can nicely see, okay, how much did I actually use of the full sheet. And the last one, same thing, front and back, nicely indicated. You still have within PREPS, if you print, just going back here, you have the possibility to say, I want the older report that we used to have. So it's a preference within PREPS where you can say, I want a JDS intent report, I want an older report as PREPS used to do. So coming back to what I just said before, I'm going to do a little bit a new assembly. I don't have PDF files, but it's just to get you an idea of what you can do. So job ID, all of this is not important. I'm going to do something with 102 pages, which is quite weird, but just to get you an idea. So I'm going to do a cover, just as before, which is 4 pages. So I'll just add this as a cover. This is all as you've known it before, and I'm just going to put this on a smaller sheet. Here we go. Then I have a content part, which contains 96 pages. It's based out of 16-page impositions. We'll do them perfect bound on top of each other. And because I'm still having 2 pages, I'm just going to put an insert on top, which is 2 pages, which is going to be something by 100 by 100, which can be flat work if all I care. There we go. And the same sheet, the sheet size. Voilà. So now you can see that this built up nicely to a 4 and then all these 16 up and a 2 up. Now, we had a request of a customer saying, if I'm going to build an imposition, what I need to do, I need to take different kind of paper for the first 8 and the last 8 pages. But when I print them, they go together on a sheet. So what can you do in PREPS? You can just take one of those. You can just say, split the section into 2 sections, 2 times 8. There we go. Now there's 8 and 8 and 16, but the 1 8, I want it to go to the back. So I just drag and drop it to the back. The 2 pages I'm going to put somewhere here in the middle because that's actually where I needed it to be. There we go. So then quickly assign any kind of binding style to it. Yeah. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, the 16 will take all of them together, actually all of these and all of these, and we'll just bring the same kind of sheet information. The 2, which is going to be this, and then the 8 is going to be anyhow the first one here again, select. Not going to spend too much time, generate restaurant. So you see the cover is automatically placed on top here, yeah, which is sheet-wise. I could have also done it work and turn, but this is just to show you, right? You could just take also one out and just make this quickly a work and turn. That will just make it like this. So you see this is quite easy to do. That's the two 8-ups, but since I only need one, I'm just going to take one out of this one. And from the last one, actually, where are you somewhere? Yeah, here we go. No, the last one was not the right one. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this one. This one, sorry. So I'm just going to here take one out, which is basically cut. And sorry about this. Paste. So I'm just going to bring this one up a little bit, and if need be, I can even do, and then I can click. Here we go. Now we're nicely centered. So as you can see here, I placed two of the parts of my assembly, which is the 8 that we have here and the second 8, together on the sheet here. Yeah. So this automatically now knows the system, okay, this is coming from two different sections, and my numbering is correct. So if I would place my PDF, they're correct, and this can go on a different kind of sheet. That basically also means that this one, which I have here, which is now empty, I can remove. Yeah. And the last one, yeah, okay, I think I've done something wrong by clicking it, but anyhow. As you can see, this does an automatic step and repeat, which I wanted to show you. Yeah. So by creating more complex jobs, and again, I can go in here and change this, you have more functionality with this assembly feature that we have here within PREPS. Okay, so this is also to give you an idea of what you can do with this and how much more functionality you have with this besides standard creating templates. Okay, let's go over a few of the other features. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my preference for a moment to packaging. Here we go. Make a new one. So a few things on packaging. So I'll just take any kind of sheet here, which I'm going to work with. And then I'm just going to take a layout that I'm going to work with. I'm just going to take a typical one here, and I'll just make it a little bit smaller, which is easier for us to work with. So 150 by 100, whatever. So as you can see, I have here now this one up standing. Yeah. And remember, there used to be, and this one is still there, there's the tool to do step and repeat. Now, for those who saw PREPS version 6, the step and repeat, when you clicked on it, you got like this drop down and you just key in the values. Now it's different. When you click on it, you would see, and I'll zoom in a little bit, you get these corner marks. And these corner marks actually tell me you can do step and repeat. At the same time, when I do this, there's also a new menu popping up. And I can just take this and drag and drop it wherever I want it. So by doing that, the system knows, okay, you're doing step and repeat. If you right mouse click on the step and repeat, you can say, okay, I'm going to center it, for instance. So now it's centered. I'm going to left mouse click again, so you have here your values. You could do bleed to bleed, trim to trim, or whatever you like doing. And if you want, you can do even some staggering. Yeah. Whatever you want to do, you could just say, okay, this is good for me. This is a typical step and repeat. Yeah. So now I'm going to save that one. So I'm going to put it as a step and repeat, which is a typical stagger first lane up. Here we go. Okay. Which means if I then would create a new job, just to show you, I'll take another kind of paper, actually same kind of paper, but I'm just going to take my layout. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to drag and drop it on there. What you see is that it will use that step and repeat, but it's empty now. Yeah, it really uses it as it's now not taking the 100 by 150 that I used to create a step and repeat. It knows, I have now a kind of a template, a kind of like a CAD/CAM file. Yeah, it's not really, but it's kind of, to put the PDF in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the PDF which I have here on my desktop, and I'm going to drag and drop it. Now, just to show you, if you drag it on one, it will apply it to this one. If you drag it on the middle of this, it will apply it on a row. This is actually on line up. And if you're actually in the middle of everything, then it will apply it to everything. I'm going to let go. And the system tells me, I've seen that your PDF actually has a different size. Do you want me to apply that to what you're doing? Yes. So then the step and repeat automatically applies itself to what I have. My PDF, I mean, the trim box. Now, the nice thing about this is even if then I would say, but okay, I have some more space. I could take the corners. I can take the corners. That's what I wanted. And I can even make it bigger if need be. So I can still work with my step and repeat. I can even center it again. Here we go. And I can work with this. So any step and repeat that you would save, even if it's a 2x2, you can reuse it afterwards, even change the trim size, and even change the step and repeat to it. And it becomes a kind of like a folding pattern, which is not correct, I know it, but it's kind of like a pattern for a step and repeat, like a folding pattern would be. At the same time, I can now add some marks to it. So we have new smart marks here. That one I've told you before, so we have that big ink eater, as we all know them, on the side. So I'll just give it a little bit of space. I have here 69, I see it, so I'll just make a big ink eater of 50. Yeah. So I can also mark a certain color to it, if it's 100% on all separations, or it's just going to be on the cyan, and there it's reversed. Yeah. And then no yellow, for instance, or something that you wanted to do, or no black, whatever. I just apply it. There we go, then you get this mark on top of it. The sign is now reversed underneath it, so there we go. That would be one way of doing it. That would be your ink eater. You can add also other custom marks to it. So let me just first do the step and repeat. So I have this silly thing here on the bottom, yeah, and I'm going to duplicate it like 20 times. No, that's too much. Let's just do 10 times. And I'll just take a distance of 30 millimeters, yeah. Okay, so then it steps it underneath here. I'll just zoom in a little bit. It's stupid, I mean, it's not what you would do, but it's just to get you an idea. So that's also typical for step and repeat. If you would apply a certain mark to one-up and you know, okay, the one-up is returning after 10 centimeters, then you know that the second mark would hit again after 10 centimeters, right? So this is how you can apply also multiple marks on there in a step and repeat mode. And I'm sorry, and what you also would have here is what has been asked in Flexo, the typical micro dots that would be added onto the sheet for Flexo printing, right? Because we've seen that this functionality of PREPS would add some extra functionality also for the Flexo market. Last but not least, here the marks rule editor. So as I said, you can automatically have marks added into an imposition when, for instance, the JDF information comes in, or when I'm working with JDF intent. Yeah, I'm keying in the values and I'm saying it's a new job and it's going to be on this press and so on and so on. So by doing that, the system can know, okay, if you're using a product, for instance, for commercial or packaging, and it's going to be cover, or it's a label, or a certain work style, or even if you would know what the folding machine would be, or the cutting machine, or the binder, or whatever, then automatically apply these marks. The power in this is that you would, in this way, be able to say, okay, I need a certain mark to be added on the proofer, but I don't want it to be added on the plate. And this way, perhaps would know, okay, if you have an imposition proof device name, I don't know, Epson, then automatically this mark needs to be added. If it's for a plate, then another mark would be added. Again, this would give you, of course, two impositions, but if you would do it within Prinergy, we would be able of saying, okay, yeah, this mark only prints on proofer and this mark only prints on plate, because we're using the same database and we would only have one imposition. And this is why PREPS is coming closer to Prinergy and will be more integrated towards the future. But as you can see, we've added this also for the standalone version, so for anybody who would like to work with the same kind of functionality by adding JDF data within PREPS, it's all there and you can all work with it, right? The one last thing that I was telling during the demo, which I didn't really show, but just to round this one up because we do get lots of requests for it. If I would create a kind of imposition that would really be funky, really be funky, so I'm just going to take this one and I'm just going to do, no, that's not what I want. This one, one up, and template, I will just say this one is up, and this one is down, and this one is even weirder. It's going to be the right, and this is going to the left. This is not a typical imposition, but just to get you an idea of what you can do. Actually, I'll just do it also to the right. I'll just do it up, because else it will be really weird. This would be a typical imposition I would make, and I would even do the numbering completely weird, because that's just the way I want it to be. and I want this to be a folding pattern. I don't think anybody can fold this, but anyhow. I can just say here, save as a custom folding pattern. I can create my own group, so I can just say here, Peter's folding patterns. Excuse me. Yeah, and this is version 1.0. There we go. And this will show up here in the folding patterns. Yeah, so there we go. Now, if I would have a new job, and I would say in my preference, it will be 100 by 100. Okay, yes. And I will just apply this typical stock that I have here, and I will apply my folding pattern on top of this. Here we go. And you can see it still takes the 12 millimeter, and I have an auto divide on stock. That's also something that PREPS has. You can see it now takes my weirdness of my my folding pattern, right? So you can see anything you want to do in PREPS. You can just save it, reuse it, and this is also one of the reasons why we say that you can minimize your template library from PREPS to a minimum, because you do not need to create templates anymore. You would do it now with folding patterns or with step and repeat patterns, as you can see here. Okay, so this kind of rounds up the demo on PREPS. Let's just go back to a few more things in the presentation, and then I have some time left for Q&A. So this is just to emphasize that it's part of our unified workflow that we have for many years already. You can see the full integration where PREPS comes into place, and also all the other software bits that we have. We have Pinergy as the heart in the middle. Then we go to the front, we would have an MIS connectivity, if possible, yeah. We work together with web-to-print systems, so it would be storefronts, like for instance from EFI or so on, we can integrate. We could, or we would, or we are integrating with our own inside PREPS portal, which allows us the possibility to get files in. And when it comes to the whole imposition part, as you can see, if we use PREPS, color flow for all the color parts, and then of course you have the output to a digital press or a CTP plate. When is it released? It is released. It was released a few weeks back into standalone mode. That's, well, I don't remember the date anymore, but it's already released now, maybe already a month ago, but it's out there, version 7. It was also released integrated already earlier. That was on the 23rd of August when Pinergy 6 hit the streets, or was out. So this is also when we had the first version 7 out. Anybody who's working with PREPS 4 or 5, will they work with the new format PREPS 6? Yes. What you can do, you can just open up any PREPS 5 template in PREPS 7. It will convert it on the fly. But what we have done, we have a small utility, which is part of your PREPS installation. Yeah. And there you can just say in the utility, take the folder from PREPS and convert them all to PREPS version 6 or version 7. Now what it will do, and this is most important, all your marks that you have placed will automatically create it into smart marks. And that's actually what the main thing this application is doing. But yes, you can work with all your templates so you won't lose them. And then a question also, that's why I already placed it here, that we get a lot. Because we are adding step and repeat functionality within PREPS, what's going to happen with Pandora? So Pandora, which is our packaging application today, will still continue to exist and will also continue to develop itself, and will actually get more functionality as we move forward. PREPS is picking up some of the step and repeat functionality because we know and we feel that when we install PREPS in a commercial market that we sometimes need the functionality that we brought in. When it comes to full functionality and really doing everything that step and repeat needs, you really need Pandora. So any kind of job, and that's also very important, that you do in Pandora will stay within Pandora. And you cannot open that one in PREPS because Pandora has more complexity within step and repeat than PREPS does. So it's very important to know. They are still individual applications and they have their own files or jobs to work with. All right, so far on the presentation and the demonstration. As Kathleen said in the beginning of the webinar, that you can always raise any questions you have during the chat. So let me just see if I have something in my chat. So I have one which I will take already. Is the preference still running from a host file, or can the preference be adjusted per machine running it? So the preferences can be adjusted per machine. if you would like to. So there is a separate file that's within a certain folder, which is a kind of a profile file, right, that it's reading. Very important to know, if you like, but I can get you that, it's no problem. You have a file in there that usually only has a few lines in it because most of the preferences are now hidden within that file. But we still have, if it's needed and you like to do it, we have a profile file that is complete. It contains all of the preferences in a text file. It's just a long text file that has true, false, 1, 2, 210, 297, you know, these kind of values. So you can get that file, you can then key in the values yourself and then copy them on every machine that you want, and there when it then starts up, it reads that preferences file. But it would be the same thing, just for information, if you on the machine open up PREPS, put the preferences you want, you say save, and then it would automatically use it the same way. Okay, another question that come, is there any improvements to automatically generated templates from MIS? We are working on improvements as we develop into the new versions of PREPS coming after 7. We have been asking at this moment to get more functionality towards parts and so on, which we have got. So there is some new functionality in there. So if you would put JDS today in PREPS 7, you will get better results than in PREPS 6. But, and I want to emphasize this, it's not complete yet. There are certain kind of binding styles, yeah, which is come and go and so on, certain kind of things that you would do in web printing that still, it has a little bit to do with the way PREPS is working and also the way JDF is working, where it's limited. There you still need to do it manually to make sure. No, we have not had any improvements in your, Jesus, he's quick with questions. So the next question was if there is any improvements on auto-ganging. We have not improved anything on auto-ganging, and we're working on improving auto-ganging. So we're adding new functionalities in the 7-point version that's coming. But at the moment, and that's also the next question, how many calculations can it work out? It will work out one calculation based on what you requested. That's the one that you will get. We had a request for doing multiple calculations and displaying them, and we're looking into this, but we have not yet set when this is going to be developed and in what release. We have it on our list, and we know that we need to do this, but it's not in this version. So when it comes to auto-ganging in PREPS 7, it's the same as it was in PREPS 6.
So I have a question in regards to auto-ganging here, Peter. The question was whether auto-ganging can be linked to a template. For example, someone needs an 8mm horizontal cutter up to 2 millimeters vertical.
I need to ask. It's not in there, but it's a good question, actually. Yeah. So write it down. I need to ask. I need to see how we can do this, but I'm not sure. I'm checking here to the questions that were asked before on different ones, but that's never been asked before, but it's a good one. So I will come back on this.
All right. We'll get back to you, Dave. So the question from Dave is, so all cutters are the same?
So yeah, that's a good question. So the gutter thing, when you have JDF, and that's a limitation, by the way, on JDF, the gutters are the same. When you create custom folding patterns, you can do whatever gutter you want. So if you stick to the JDF manual and you use those JDF folding patterns to create your imposition, then if you would change one gutter, all of the gutters will stay the same automatically. So if you say 1 is 6, then all of them are 6. If you create a folding pattern that you did yourself, and you would save that, then you can then later on say gutter 1 is 6, gutter 2 is 5, and gutter 3 is 4, or whatever you want to do. It's got something to do with the JDF limitation, and they know it. We've had several JDF meetings already where we brought it up that most people need different kind of gutters, and they can all not be the same. But so far, there hasn't changed the JDF specification on that, so it's a limitation of JDF.
Thank you, Peter. I have another question from Richard. Are cut marks still automatic, or can they be individually deleted from an item?
You know what? I'll check this myself. Because that's a good question that I don't know exactly the answer to, but it would be a good one. Let's see if there's crop marks on here. Yeah. Let's see if I can read one. And let's see if I can select one. And let's just see. No, I'll let them know. Good one. So now if you delete one, they're all gone. And it's a good one actually, because I remember in PREPS 5 you could take one by one and delete them. Thank you, Dave. I will come back to you when I have an answer if they will fix it or when it will be fixed. Yeah. Maybe there's a control click or something. I know when I asked Patrick, who is the guy who always stands on this, sorry, didn't mean to be like this, but this is the way. And can you delete now? Yeah. So Alt click. I did. Or was it control click? I didn't know which key I clicked. I clicked on a key and then, yeah, it's Alt click. It's a little, my Mac is doing some weird thing, but it's Alt click, then you can select one and then you can delete one by one. Okay. Let's see, the rest is still there. Yeah. Okay. So I don't need to ask him anymore. So Alt click and then you can just hit delete. Always fun when you have the software with you, then at least you can check it out. So. Okay.
All right. So far, no other questions on my side, Peter?
Okay. So this is something that maybe, Kathleen, you want to say, or I mean,
Yes, so for those that don't know yet, we have a dedicated microsite which is running on the KODAK website for Prinergy 6. It does contain various blogs, but you could also have a section there with Ask the Experts. So I would advise everyone to have a look because questions are raised there and our experts in Vancouver in our headquarters do themselves answer these questions. So I would definitely advise everyone to have a look on our Prinergy 6 website, which is www.kodak.com/Prinergy6. So if you do want to reach out to either Peter or myself, you could find here our contact details. You can either reach us by email or you can give us a quick call. We're always available for you to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day.